Welcome to this gentle restorative class this week. We just had a full moon over the weekend. It was the strawberry full moon in Sagittarius. And hopefully you stayed grounded through that particular full moon. I mentioned yesterday that the energy of that full moon is to give us that encouragement to push forward towards the summer solstice, which is the biggest or longest day of daylight in the year. But today I thought we would honor the tailwinds of this full moon energy and bring it down and do more restorative yoga. The restorative yoga will allow us to really settle into our bodies. It will allow us to drop into our hearts. It will give us some replenishment if by chance you have been off with your sleep. So the theme for today is something that I actually did in my active class this morning as an inspiration from the retreat I did over the weekend. I've been teaming up with this lady, Kristen Alpine, who does wildflowers and fresh food. She has her business down in Fairhope, Alabama, but she also has brought it up to Linville, Tennessee. And she has a beautiful property, and there's little pockets on the property that are such little sacred spots. And every retreat I've done there, I've kind of moved us around the grounds to do different practices. And the one this past weekend was called You Belong Among the Wildflowers. This was a little bit of a nod to her and her name, but it was also because we love flowers so much, and we both consider ourselves a wildflower. And I did a class at Half Moon pre-pandemic based on this particular topic. You may or may not remember it. But the reason why I brought it up as a topic, and I even played the Tom Petty song, You Belong Among the Wildflowers, you belong somewhere you feel free. That's kind of the gist of the song or the lyrics. And I was mentioning that yoga's ultimate goal is liberation, the ability to be free. So hopefully you have been freeing up yourself through your time practicing. But there was a number of years ago when this song came more meaningful to me. And it was during the time when Black Lives Matters was really kind of stirring up. And around that correctness happening with certain things in the English language, certain things that were being brought forth to our attention, to kind of review it and see, does it really apply to today and where we are in our society now? For instance, calling the biggest bedroom in your home the master suite. That term actually comes from the time of slavery and plantation home. And I know it's hard to get rid of some of our language because it's just, we don't think about where its roots come from. But think about when someone's blacklisted, blackballed, or considered a black sheep. It is something that we should, maybe start to reframe in our mind. And I had always called myself the black sheep of my family, just because I always felt like the oddball. I always felt different. Even though I tried to mold and be like them, I just couldn't. And I was looked at as being rebellious, even though honestly I wasn't that rebellious. I was just different. And there was a period of time a number of years ago that I had taken my son to a cabin up in the Smoky Mountains. And if you've ever been to any of the cabins in the Smoky Mountains or in that kind of area, you will discover that a lot of these cabins that you rent are like up gravel or dirt roads, and there's no landscaping with these homes. It's literally a cabin in the woods. And that's what we had gotten, and I was sitting out on the deck the first day that we had come to the cabin, and I'm thinking about some friction that was going on with me and my family, but I was also looking out over the landscape, and there were these beautiful pops of colors, just random wildflowers. And it was in that moment I decided, you know what? I'm taking black sheep out of my language. I'm the wildflower. Because who doesn't love flowers, especially wildflowers, because they're so random and they pop up unexpectedly and they bring joy. So if you ever feel like you're kind of a little bit of an outcast, whether it's your family or work or just in general, consider renaming yourself the Wildflower. And what I want us to do today when we're resting in our bodies and paying attention to going within, I want you to think about areas that may, sometimes be problematic or cause you grief. Think about befriending that area, sending love to that area, and imagining that's where the wildflowers are blooming. Because we often think of the heart or the mind being like a garden where we plant seeds, which is very purposeful. And wildflowers, as we know, are just, wild. So let's go ahead and we're going to start with our legs lifted. So if you wanted to use a chair, basically you could be on your back and you could have the legs up like this. And then of course, if you wanted to use a slide with 2 blocks in a bolster, you could do that. Or of course, you could come to a wall if that's available. I like to come to the corner with my sits bones close to the wall, drop into a side fetal position, and then roll onto my back with the legs lifting upward. So I'll go ahead and let you determine which of those inversions you would like to perform. And I'll also let you decide where you want to place your hands. So if you are feeling a little too much in your head, indecisive, confused, ungrounded, it may be better to place the hands on the body. Once you get nestled in, close your eyes. Take a mental review of the last few days. And then tell yourself to be here now. And then come to the present moment by honing in on your breath. And if your hands are residing on your hips or abdomen, feel the movement underneath. And allow your breath to naturally take you within. We're going to utilize an affirmation to plant a positive seed of thought. So affirm internally and quietly within, new peace, new consciousness is flooding into my being. If you begin to feel any tingling effect through the toes or feet. Don't be alarmed, it's normal. Consider how sometimes when there's a swollen area in your ankles or legs, how the doctor will say to elevate your legs over your heart. And that's because there's drainage that can occur to reduce the swelling. And even though we may not be swollen, we're still receiving some of that drainage with our legs elevated this way. It is good for our circulation. It's good for the lymphatic tissues. And opening up a very specific energetic meridian that travels through the back of the body. Come back and water that seed, that affirmation, by repeating it again. New peace, new consciousness is flooding down and through my being. Continue to try to quiet the mind. You can do that by replacing your thoughts with that affirmative thought. Or returning to the breath. new peace, new consciousness is flooding down through my being. We're going to transition now. If by chance you're using the chair, you're just going to slide your heels towards you or to the edge of the chair. If you're doing legs at the wall, separate your feet like a V. Bring the knees and feet down. And then let some softness come into your inner thighs so they can flop open. So if you're using a chair, it may be more like an apanasana without hugging the knees in. At a wall, you could do that apanasana with your feet side by side, knees more knit together. But I like the tree frog with the feet apart, the knees rolling away. Keep the eyes turned down, awareness tuned up. And just as we were planting positive seeds of thoughts in the mind, I want you to drop your attention down into your heart center. And imagine you have planted seeds to grow a garden. And you can picture any of your favorite flowers, whether it's tiger lilies, roses, tulips, and then think about every breath being a way that you can weed out the garden of your heart. So for instance, we can weed out non-acceptance, unworthiness, ill will, grievances, grudges. And then if any other area is calling your attention, maybe even down in the hips, you can imagine the wildflowers blooming. Let's just hold this one. Few more rounds of breath. And then gently start to turn over towards one side of your body. Come up. And we're going to take a restorative twist. So have your bolster to your right hip and then your feet off to the left side. Extend your spine nice and long and start to turn towards the bolster. Oh, if you need a blanket, I meant to say this, maybe stacked in between the legs, you can add that in. Resting on the right cheek will be a little more gentle to your back and your neck. As always, take a few deep, controlled breaths at first. And then you can eventually let the control go. And then affirm quietly within. I'm opening myself up to a new flow of positive, light-filled energy within. I'm opening myself up to a new positive flow of energy within. Slide the hands closer. Heal ourselves up. And it's two-sided, so the bolster can remain. Bring your blanket with if you chose to use it. And then be sure to extend the vertebrae nice and tall first before you lay back down. Of course, the left cheek will be the more gentle side. And as you're taking a few deep breaths to settle in here, be aware as you reflect on how long it may have taken you to get to that sweet surrender. Sometimes it takes our conscious effort to move into that relaxed state. Even though this isn't formal meditation, using a meditation type technique can get us there. So for instance, observing the ebb and flow of your breath, or repeating the affirmation like a mantra. Opening myself up to a new flow of positive energy within. The places you look at negatively at your body, picture the wildflowers blooming. Bring some love, light, and life into those areas. Let's begin to slide the hand towards us and come up. And this will be a simple maneuver. All you have to do is turn your back to the bolster. You can use that blanket to go under the knees, under your head, or over your body to stay warm. Because we're going to take a back bend, so earlier we were weeding out the garden of the heart. Now that your heart is receiving this opening, imagine that it's in full bloom. Some fresh soil. Imagine that each breath you take is bringing in some nourishment, some irrigation. Slow, deep, rhythmic breaths at first before it goes more organic. you have the option to stay here if you're not ready to move. If you want to deepen your back bend your knees, roll to one side of your body, and you can take the bolster sideways. Now, in the studio environment, I would be demoing that you can put a blanket or even like a toss pillow on this side for your head and shoulders if you need it. If your low back is uncomfortable when you drape over, you can sit on the pillow or blanket, and you may not need those at all. So test it out. This is more of a restorative fish. Again, only do this one if it feels good to your body, especially your neck and shoulders. And if not, you can go back to the other, or even take the bolster under your knees. This is the one we're going to complete our practice with today. And just like we were weeding out the garden of the heart, I want us to now use Shavasana as a way to weed out any negative or unnecessary thoughts for the time being. In fact, I'm not even going to utilize an affirmation. That way you can notice those stream of thoughts when they come in. As soon as they arise, try not to attach. Try not to develop a storyline. Instead, take a deep breath. Let it go. As if it were being blown away by the wind of your breath. Just like you would blow a dandelion and watch it disperse. We'll go ahead and start to bend the knees. Maybe shift them gently side to side before rolling away to one. Maybe rest on your side for a bit since we did a whole hour of restorative. Take your time. Pushing down eventually into that top hand to slowly come up. And we'll close out our practice. Bringing your hands to prayer and remembering you belong among the wildflowers. And you belong somewhere you feel free. I hope this practice freed up some space in your mind today. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Namaste.